May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O Lord my God. In this week's gospel reading, Jesus tells a parable about a widow who seeks justice against her oppressor. Day after day, she appeals to a judge who neither fears God nor respects people. Day after day, the judge refuses to help her, but she persists, tirelessly bothering the judge until he's sick of her very presence. I will grant her justice, he says to himself, so that she may not wear me out. Or in the Greek, so that she won't give me a black eye. At the outset, the gospel writer tells us that Jesus' parable is about the need to pray always and not to lose heart. But this is trouble. Are we really supposed to harass God until we wear him down? Is that what prayer is? Bothering a hard-hearted God until he caves? When we receive an answer to prayer, is it only because God is sick to death of hearing our voice and wants us to shut up? Thankfully, the reading anticipates these questions and wards them off. In case we're inclined to think of a God as the unjust judge, Jesus explains that the parable works by the way of contrast. Unlike the heartless judge in the story, God will quickly grant justice to those who cry out to him. But this explanation raises troubling questions too, because our lived experiences contradict it. Too often, God does delay in our most fervent prayers for healing, for justice, protection, peace, go unanswered. Too often, our struggles with prayer lead us to experience God very much as a judge, turned away from the urgency of our requests for reasons we can't begin to fathom. So what are we to make of this parable? Well, for starters, I wonder if the story is less about God and more about us. I wonder if it's about the state of our hearts and about the motivations behind our prayers. Maybe what's at stake is not who God is and how God operates in the world, but who we are and why we need so desperately to be people of persistent prayer. I want to consider the possibility from two angles. First, what can we learn if we put ourselves in the place of the widow? The parable begins with an exhortation not to lose heart. What does this mean? What does it look like to lose heart in our spiritual lives? The words that come to mind for me are weariness, resignation, numbness, and despair. When we lose heart, we lose our sense of focus and direction. We lose clarity and begin to doubt God's intentions. We get irritable and cynical very quickly. Our spiritual GPS goes haywire, and all roads lead to nowhere. In contrast, the widow in Jesus' parable is the very picture of purposefulness, precision, aliveness, and clarity. She knows her need, she knows its urgency, and she knows exactly where to go and whom to ask in order to get her need met. If anything, the daily business of getting up, getting dressed, heading over to the judge's house or workplace, banging on his door, and talking his ear off until he listens, fortifies her own sense of who she is, what she's about. Like many of the storied widows in the Bible, there is nothing vague or washed out about this bold, plucky woman who drives the apathetic judge nuts with her demands. She lives in technicolor, here and now. Give me justice, and I will not shut up until you do. What happens when we pray like the widow? What is prayer for? I can only speak from experience, but I know that when I persist in prayer, like really persist with a full heart over a long period of time, something happens to me. My sense of who I am, to whom I belong, what really matters in this life and why, these things mature and solidify. My heart grows stronger. It becomes less fragile and flighty. Once in a long while, it even soars. And sometimes, here's the biggest surprise, these good and substantive things happen even when I don't receive the answer I'm praying. Now, I don't mean for a moment to suggest that unanswered prayer doesn't take a toll. It does. It hurts and it baffles. Sometimes it breaks our hearts. But maybe that's the point of the parable too. The work of prayer is hard. The widow's predicament is not straightforward. She has to make a costly choice every single day. Will I keep asking? Dare I risk humiliation one more time? Do I still believe that my request is worthy of articulation? Can I be patient? Am I still capable of trusting in the possibility of justice? Prayer is, finally, a great mystery. We can't know, and it's not given to us to know, why some prayers are answered quickly and many others are not. We can't understand why our earnest pleas for justice, for healing, or peace hit the wall of God's silence and sometimes remain there for weeks, months, years, or even lifetimes. And yet, from the heart of this bewildering mystery, Jesus asks, will I find faith on the earth? Which is to say, will I find men and women like the bothersome widow? Will I find such ferocity, such tenacity, such fortitude? The widow's only power in this story is the power of showing up, the power of sheer grit. But the story suggests that this power is not to be taken lightly, which is to say, prayer is not to be taken lightly. We can't always know what gets shaken, transformed, upended, or vindicated simply because we show up again and again in prayer. But there is a second way to read the parable too. And it might seem like a little stretch, but I'm going to offer it anyway, because it speaks to where I often find some in relationship with God. What if we are not the widow in the parable? What if we are the judge, and God, the pleading, persistent one, is the widow? The widow knocking down our door in hopes that we will soften our hearts and attend to the pain, injustice, and sorrow wounding God's very being. Jesus describes the judge as a man who neither fears God nor has respect for people. Can we honestly say that we never fit this description? Can we honestly profess that we're never indifferent, irritable, closed off, or unsympathetic? Is it really the case that our hearts are always open to the pain and brokenness of others? Don't we self-protect? Don't we police our borders quite compulsively? Don't we say, it's not my problem, someone else will take care of it? Scripture attests to the fact that God not only hears the cries of the helpless, but God is in the cries of the helpless. God dwells with the unseen, unheard, unloved, and unwanted. God is the wronged widow crying for justice, pleading with us to listen, to care, to keep our hearts open on her behalf. The truth is, the judge lives in us. And if the parable this week has anything to offer, it is that prayer alone will wear down our inner judge. It is through persistent prayer that our hearts will soften. It is through persistent prayer that every obstacle we place before God, our fear, our shame, our woundedness, our inattentiveness, will be dismantled. In this sense, prayer is the first and foremost. Prayer is the fist that breaks down the doors of our stubborn and sinful resistance. Prayer is what enables the light of God's compassion to illuminate the darkest and most oppressed corners of human life with hope and compassion. Not coincidentally, all of our lectionary readings this week are about persistence. The widow persists in her belief that good things will come to her, even when the odds look wretched. Jacob, wrestling with the angel in total darkness, persists until the blessing of a new name and a new future are granted to him. The writer of 2 Timothy encourages persistence again and again, whether the time is favorable or unfavorable. And the psalmist reminds himself and us that the reason we can be persistent is because God is. God is our powerful and relentless keeper who neither slumbers nor sleeps, who watches over our comings and goings and guards our days and nights. Our persistence can never be in vain because it is rooted in God. What all of these readings suggest is that God delights in those who dare to strive with him, to contend with him, to wrestle with him. Wrestling, as it turns out, is not a bad or even a scary thing because it is the opposite of apathy, the opposite of resignation. It's even the opposite of loneliness. To fight with God, to show up day after day in prayer, to wrestle with our resistance in the darkest hours of the night, is to stay close, to keep our arms wrapped tight around the one who alone can bless us. Fighting means we haven't walked away. Fighting means we still have skin in the game. When the Son of Man comes, Jesus asks at the end of the parable, will he find faith on the earth? Faith that persists. Faith that contends. Faith that wrestles. This is the question that matters. Will he find such faith in us? Okie So, announcements. We had a holy hike on Saturday. How did it go?
It went well. I want to thank Timothy and Beckett for joining us and letting us bushwhack a little bit.
Awesome. And then we also had pub theology.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
It went really well. There were more people than I expected. There were 6 of us all together. And not everyone was from St. John's, which was great too. We had some other people come in, and we decided to read an N.T. Wright book called The Challenge of Jesus. It's a great book, so if you would like to come next month, we'll be starting that. It's a great time to come and have fellowship and discuss who Christ is and what that means for our responsibility as Christians.
Yeah. I had a little trouble finding that book. The library's trying to get it.
Okay. Yes,
Suggestions?
available on Kindle,
Amazon.
Amazon.
Who is the author?
N.T. Wright.
We can work with you when we do
Yeah.
that book. Upcoming events. Halloween is in 2 weeks, which is slightly scary for those of us who are making our kids' costumes. So we need lots and lots of candy. I can tell you just from what people have told me in the past that the candy that we have is not quite enough yet. So please keep bringing in candy, and if you are able to help hand out candy, it'll be from 6 to 9 here in the church, and I will probably be here most of the day decorating because I love Halloween and that's just a thing. Also, I'm going to be Master Splinter from the Ninja Turtles, so don't be weirded out, but that's what they've asked me to be at work, so I figure I'm just going to carry the costume over. So, any other announcements?
We'll have a chili dinner that night as well, so if you want to come and right from work, have dinner, that kind of thing. We usually have enough folks around handing out candy. You can pop over, grab something to eat, come back and hand out candy. It really is kind of a fun thing. So if you're even able to join us for a little bit, is great. Just know that the streets get quite filled with children once trick-or-treat starts, so choose your parking spot carefully. The other thing that's going to come up right after Halloween is November. I know, shocking, right? But the vestry decided this year that we were going to do a stewardship campaign kickoff, kind of pitch-in on that first Sunday in November. So we will have a sign-up sheet for the pitch-in. Our coffee hours have been a little bit less this year intentionally, but we're doing more maybe pitch-ins, like one a month, as a way to kind of bring us all together in a different kind of way in this regathering time. The other thing that I did not put in the bulletin was that our diocesan convention is coming up November 4th and 5th. And our diocese is very much anybody is welcome to come to convention. There's a registration process. We will have 2 official voting members for St. John's. If you want to hang out after service today, we'll get you registered. But then just know that if you want to go and participate, you're more than welcome to. Everybody's welcome. It's happening in the Episcopal Suites in Plainfield. Once again, it was November 4th and 5th.
Awesome. Any other announcements? Birthdays or anniversaries? All right, that's an easy day today. So, through Jesus, therefore, let us continually offer to God a sacrifice of praise, the fruit of lips that openly profess His name, and do not forget to do good and to share with others, for which such sacrifices God is pleased.